Have you ever thought, I really want to start living zero waste, but I don't think I can give up my hobbies? Good news for you, you don't have to. Hello everyone, it's Emma and welcome back to my channel where I talk about all sorts of things zero waste, but I focus on free, easy, and fun ways to live low waste, basically making zero waste practical and accessible for everyone. Unfortunately, I see this discourse all too often in the zero waste movement. People trying to figure out how to keep the joy in their life through their hobbies and things they enjoy without creating the waste. And it's hard, so my advice is to don't sacrifice every bit of joy. If your hobby involves a little bit of waste, don't give it up or don't give it up entirely. This video is to prove that you can do most hobbies with less waste involved, mostly just by shopping secondhand. But even if a little waste is created, you can't get around that anyway. Now, why do I say that? Because if we give up every single little piece of joy in our life to live a more eco-friendly lifestyle, that's not sustainable for us. It might be sustainable for the planet, but if it's not sustainable for us, we're not going to want to keep it up. If I gave up all crocheting, all video games, all reading, all hiking, whatever I enjoyed doing that I'm going to be talking about in this video, why would I want to live zero waste if my life is now boring and dull and just focused about creating as little waste as possible? Now, of course, I'm still trying to create as little waste as possible, but I have found ways to make my hobbies eco-friendly, and if they do create a little bit of waste, I'm not going to stress about it because I need joy in my life. We all do. Everyone deserves to be happy, even if it creates a little bit of waste. I just talked about this in a recent TikTok/Reels about why getting tattoos for me is something that brings me joy and I'm not going to give it up, even though there's a little bit of plastic involved. Because at the end of the day, me getting one tattoo every quarter or like twice a year is not causing climate change, and it's not the reason for the plastic pollution crisis. Is it contributing to it? Probably, but it's not the reason. You as an individual, especially like us average Joes, that's not causing climate change. We are not the problem. I'm still a strong believer in that our small positive impacts, our small positive actions do make a really big difference in the long run, especially the more we do them and the more people we get involved doing them. One small negative action from all of us is not going to make or break anything. And I talked more about that in my video about how to live zero waste with chronic illness video. You can check that out up here. If you didn't know, I have chronic migraines, I have Raynaud's, and I have arthritis. And I still find ways to live zero waste, but I don't stress the waste because of these things, as well as we can find other ways to live zero waste. If you can't give up your hobby, find other ways to reduce waste in your life. Let's talk about how we can maintain our hobbies in a more eco-friendly way. These are a few of Dan's favorite hobbies, a few of my favorite hobbies, and just a few others I have sprinkled in from businesses I've heard of. Let us know down below how you make your hobbies more low waste down below, because I would love to make a part 2 because there are so many hobbies out there, and I would love to share about how you guys make them all a little more eco-friendly. First is books and reading. Of course, you can use ebooks, which you can get ebooks on your phone. If you didn't know, I didn't know this till I moved to Vegas. Of course, go get your library card because then you can borrow books. That's another tip later on. But your library card will also give you access to online databases where you can borrow ebooks and audiobooks. My library does Hoopla. I know other libraries do Libby, and there are other apps out there as well. Free ebooks. Free audiobooks right to your phone. You don't even need an e-reader. If you prefer an e-reader, you can find one secondhand. We found both of ours very easily secondhand, but then we quit using them because I'm like, wait, I don't really like reading. I like listening. I love audiobooks, and they are my new favorite thing. So those are my first 2 tips, ebooks and audiobooks for free on apps like these. But if you use an e-reader like a Kindle, for example, you still have to buy your books on Amazon, and they cost a lot of money for an ebook. So do what you want with that information. You can also get secondhand books by going to like a regular thrift store like Goodwill, but my favorite place to get secondhand books is from thrift books, just like thriftbooks.com. It's a whole database of secondhand books where you can actually search for titles or genres. I like this much better because while I love going to secondhand bookstores, it really stresses me out having to read every title, having to read every description. While I have a to-be-read list on my Goodreads, it's got like 200 books on there. So I can just search for those titles on thrift books and find the book secondhand. But I've actually just been listening to the books recently, so I search for them on Hoopla. Of course, as I already hinted at, you can just borrow books from your library. Borrowing is one of the easiest ways we can live zero waste with anything, but specifically with books. You can also organize a book swap similar to a clothing swap. Get together with all of your reader friends. You could even do this online and just swap books with one another so that nobody has to buy new books. Nobody has to have a set time limit on how long they can borrow it for, and then you can have a free new book for your own house. You could also check out Free Little Libraries. It's literally just, I think, freelittlelibraries.com. They have a whole map on their website where you can find a little library. Have you never seen them before? They look kind of like birdhouses. They look like this. They're so cute and they're so fun. You can also donate to those as well. You can donate your books to thrift stores and secondhand bookstores. You can also sell your books back to thrift books. And of course, if you want to buy a brand new book, you want to support the author, you want to support a bookstore, good for you. This is definitely not the budget option though, but I highly recommend you support your local bookstores instead of things like Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Or better yet, you can also order straight from the author online. While you're still getting a new book in that sense, at least you're supporting a small business and supporting a person directly versus a big corporation. All right, let's move on to video games. It was just around this time last year. Yeah. It was the 4th of July weekend last year when Dan introduced me and my sister to Breath of the Wild on our secondhand Switch. He got that when he was in Romania. The rest is history. I completed Breath of the Wild twice in like 8 months or so. And now I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom. Those are my only video games, really. Here's how we do that sustainably. Of course, as I already hinted at, we got our system secondhand. I got my iPad secondhand if you want to do like games in that sense. But the Switch we got secondhand, and it was in really good condition with games that already came with it. If you need new parts, like a new controller, a new Joy-Con, whatever, get those secondhand. If you're not too big into physical games, like I know some people like to collect physical games, and that's totally fine if that's what you're into. But for me, I don't really care, and I got the downloaded game faster than I got the physical game, so I just downloaded the game, Tears of the Kingdom. So that's a great way to live low waste too, because they don't actually have to create the little game card, they don't send it in a bunch of packaging. That's a great way to live low waste too. You can also just get the physical games secondhand though, if you still want to collect your physical games. We did this a lot back in the day, back in the early 2000s when the Wii and the DS were the big hot games. We would get all of our games secondhand. Mostly because it was cheaper. Actually, all because it was cheaper. It saved so much money this way. They're usually like half off. But of course, this saves waste as well. And you can also sell your old games back, sell your old systems back to stores like GameStop and other game stores. And you're going to see this theme with all of these hobbies. Thrift the stuff for yourself, and then when you're done with those items, donate them back and keep the circular economy going. Donate your old consoles, donate your old games. Especially with like high-end stuff like games and stuff, you can even sell them. Alright, moving on to hiking, backpacking, and outdoorsy things. This is just, they're all very similar when it comes to how to make them more eco-friendly. Of course, look for your gear secondhand, just sticking on the theme, specifically places like Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, eBay Depop, ThreadUp, and then even REI's resale. I will leave REI's website linked down below. To become a member with REI, it's a $30 one-time fee, and then you get access to their resale online and in person. Like they have an online resale and an in-person at all of their stores. But again, with stuff like with video games, expensive electronics, with hiking stuff is so expensive. We found my pack on OfferUp. We found Dan's pack on Facebook Marketplace. We got my backpacking pack, our tent, our cook system, both of our sleeping bags, all of it secondhand through REI, either in person or on their website. I kid you not, it's almost always half off. Especially when it comes, like I needed a really good sleeping bag because bringing it back to the Raynaud's, I'm a very, very cold person, so I needed a very well-rated sleeping bag, which most of which are like $300 or $400, and I'm like, I simply do not want to do that. So I got it secondhand, and I saved at least 50%, possibly more. Before you get really into an outdoor hobby, you can also borrow and rent stuff. You can ask a friend if you can borrow stuff. We had a friend borrow stuff sometime last year on his first backpacking trip, and then he realized, I don't actually like backpacking. So before he dropped thousands of dollars, we just gave him some stuff to borrow, and it was a very low cost experience. Of course, a more eco-friendly experience. A lot of outdoor outfitters and suppliers like REI, for example, do rentals. If you're in the military, go to your outdoor rec. They are so cheap. We rented a mountain bike the other week for an entire weekend for $30. Renting can be so cheap, a very like low level of entry into that hobby before you actually find out if you like it or not, because like a mountain bike is thousands of dollars. And we bought that, and then I was like, I don't like mountain biking. What a waste of money. And of course, borrowing, like I mentioned with the library books, is a very, very eco-friendly thing to do, because new stuff doesn't have to be created for you to partake in it. And then everybody gets to share this one item instead of like thousands of bicycles being created. When you are looking for brand new materials, this goes with all hobbies, of course, but like we're specifically talking about outdoorsy stuff. Look for eco-friendly materials, recycled materials. My favorite Patagonia puffy is made from recycled materials. My favorite socks are made out of wool. I've got some t-shirts, not this one. My t-shirts from Tentry are made out of Tencel. I've got some stuff made out of cotton. So like look for natural materials when you're looking for stuff new. If you're hiking, simply just pick up trash when you see it. This could be a fun little extra hobby. Pick up litter. I guess if you just like walking around your neighborhood, pick up trash when you see it. Also just follow the rules of leave no trace when you're going outside. You can learn more about leave no trace in this video, but simply respect the wildlife, respect the people, be responsible with fires, pick up trash when you see it, dispose of your waste properly, be careful with your pets, be responsible with your pets, all that sort of stuff. You can also make your own snacks and meals when you go backpacking to reduce waste. Instead of buying a prepackaged sandwich, make your own sandwich at home. It might still involve a little bit of plastic waste, but it will be less and typically cheaper. Also use reusable water bottles when you're doing any sort of like sport or activity, but specifically hiking. I also have a full video that I just made a couple weeks ago about how I live zero waste when I go outdoors, zero waste swaps, zero waste hobbies for outdoor recreation, you can check that out up here for more tips in this category. As I said, with all these categories, when you're done with something, sell it or donate it. We had my very first sleeping bag. We donated it to a local outdoorsy thrift store. Any of our old hiking clothes, we just donate and stuff like that. One of my old hobbies from high school that I really want to get back into when we have a full-sized home, not just an RV, is music. Fun fact about me, I play a ton of instruments. I started on piano, I then learned guitar, and then I learned clarinet, and then I learned trumpet, and then I learned flute, and then I learned French horn. I can play pretty much every percussion instrument. I can play a little bit saxophone. Is that all of them? A little bit of trombone. Hand me an instrument, I'll figure it out. All that to say, I love music. I've always loved music my whole life. So again, sticking with the theme, look for your instruments secondhand. All of my instruments that I own are secondhand. My clarinet I got from a friend from my mom's, trumpet I got from a friend from my mom's, and my flute I got from a friend of mine. And I think all of them were also free. Again, instruments can be quite expensive, so this is another great way to save money and of course save a brand new item from getting created and an old instrument from going to the landfill. You can also download sheet music to your phone, to your computer, to your iPad instead of printing it out. Especially if you're just like a hobby musician, like at home. When you're actually like in a music class, they'll probably print it out for you. I don't know, maybe these days they do it digitally. I haven't been in a band in 6 years. You can also recycle your old sheet music. I've seen so many, like, maybe this is like very 2012 Pinterest of me. You can recycle it to make like crafts out of. You can also just use the back of it to like take notes on, or you could just simply throw it in your recycling bin and recycle it that way. Maintain your instruments so they last as long as possible. Rip to my instruments that are in storage right now. They definitely need some maintenance. I don't know the proper maintenance for every single instrument, but maintain them so they last as long as possible, and then hopefully you don't have to throw them away. And of course, you know what I'm gonna say for the last tip in this category, resell your old instruments when they no longer serve a purpose to you and prevent it from the landfill. Better yet, you could also donate them to schools so that people who don't have enough money to buy instruments can still participate in the band. If you're just into sports in general, I have a couple for you. Of course, am I beating a dead horse at this point? Look secondhand. Again, Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, eBay, etc. Also just like Goodwill, REI has some sports equipment. Also, hand-me-downs. My siblings and I, we all played some form of softball or baseball at some point. So we would share bats, we would share gloves, we would share pants, cleats, all that sort of stuff. We just passed gear on to one another, no matter what sport it was. If it fit us, if it worked for us, we used it. But this can also go with like cousins, neighbors, friends, etc. Just ask people to share and borrow within your community. Again, just like with some other hobbies, you can just rent and borrow stuff instead of buying it outright, especially if like you or your kid is just trying out the sport for the first time. There's no need to go all out and buy all the equipment brand new if you're trying it out. If you end up liking it, you can buy it brand new or secondhand, but if you're just trying it for the first time, try borrowing first so that you don't spend a bunch of money and create a bunch of waste on a sport that you might not actually like. You can also check out Eco Sports. I'll leave them tagged down below. They are a eco-friendly sporting equipment outfitter, I suppose. They make gear with recyclability in mind as well as longevity. They want their sports equipment to last as long as possible to prevent it from going to the landfill, as well as hopefully they can all be recycled at the end of their lives. You can also carpool to games and practices. This was a big thing in my small town. A lot of us went to the YMCA after school to do basketball or gymnastics or whatever it might be, so a lot of us did carpool, and this saved a lot of money and gas for all the parents. And again, just like clockwork, donate and sell all of your old sports equipment when it no longer serves you. I guess like with the music instruments, you could see if you could donate it to schools or like sports institutions like the YMCA, like, I don't know, a sporting gym, whatever, and see if they can use it for people who can't afford sporting gear. Okay, I was going to just specifically talk about crocheting because that's my form of like art, but I decided to just talk about miscellaneous. Take what you will, but I'm sure I will not even cover all of it, and leave your tips down below. Of course, shop secondhand. I have found a lot of really good yarn secondhand, some in Ohio, some here. There's a specific secondhand art store here in Spokane, Art Salvage. Go check it out if you're here. It's amazing. They upcycle so many different things. They have classes to teach you. So check secondhand. I've even seen yarn at Goodwill. Also, choose eco-friendly materials when possible. For example, where's my yarn? I started crocheting us some hats when it was cold, but now it's July and I got unmotivated. I decided to pick wool because it's the warmest and also very eco-friendly. I've also seen recycled skeins of yarn. I've seen silk yarn. I've seen like alpaca yarn. But if you're into other hobbies like woodworking, for example, you could, pick like reclaimed wood. If you are into like scrapbooking, you could pick recycled paper or like naturally dyed paper. You could pick paper stickers instead of plastic-based stickers. Just look for natural materials instead. You can also upcycle stuff into art. So many of my art projects have been upcycles. I'll see if I can find the old footage. I had a bunch of reclaimed wood that I found when we were living in Okinawa. They're like old cutting boards. I painted into some decor that I absolutely love and other signs and stuff. And of course, my favorite, I talk about this anytime I talk about upcycling or art, is my beautiful handmade rug right down here. It's made out of oh gosh, I don't know, 40 t-shirts or so, and I made 3 rugs. I had a lot of t-shirts from all the sports and hobbies I did in high school, and I didn't want them to go to the landfill because it was like, Emma's gymnastics team, my high school academic achievement, Spring Fling 2013. Like, it was very personalized. Nobody's gonna buy that at a Goodwill. Maybe they will, but I'm like, I don't want to risk that going to a Goodwill and then Goodwill being like, nope, we're just gonna send it to the landfill. So I decided I was going to make art out of it. I guess it's art. I crocheted, but like, it's very functional in my house. It's a rug. There are so many things you can upcycle into art. I'm upcycling toilet paper tubes, shoe boxes, tin cans, prescription bottles, so many things. You could also rent and borrow large crafting items, things like sewing machines, crickets, embroidery machines, yarn cake spinners, etc. I actually have a local yarn store here in Spokane. Again, Paradise Fibers, if you want to check it out. They have stuff like that you can just go into their shop, borrow it while you need it so that you don't have to buy it yourself, saving you money, saving waste, especially because if it's something that you're only going to be using a handful of times throughout the year, not just borrow it. If we all borrowed a sewing machine, that would be so many less sewing machines that would have to be created. Oh, also look secondhand for this stuff. I found my sewing machine secondhand, again, for like half price, and it was a great deal, great sewing machine. Also, buy what you need. I know this is like every artist I know is like, ooh, this color's on sale, or ooh, this color's really cute, without actually having a project in mind. And I've really had to restrain myself on this. Living in an RV, I only have so much space, so I only buy yarn for what projects I have in mind. So I encourage you to do that too, no matter how much space you have, because that will ultimately reduce waste. I don't know how many times I bought yarn with something in mind, even if it was just like I liked the color and I never used it. Granted, I did donate the yarn. I think I gave it to my friend who is a crocheter. It could potentially go to waste and it will just waste you money. So only buy what you need. Use what you have before buying new. Again, I'm going to relate this all to yarn because I'm a crocheter, but I'm going to look at my yarn stash, see what I can use up first for whatever project I have in mind before going to a local, hopefully local yarn store. I guess just like with books, check out your local craft stores versus big box craft stores like Michael's and Hobby Lobby. But still, use what you have at your home before going out and buying something new. You could also use scraps to make projects. I know a lot of crocheters who do the little like amigurumi, is that how you say it? The little like caricatures, little characters and animals and stuff. People will use scrap yarn to stuff those. So that's a great way to use scrap yarn. You could use scrap paper to make collages. You could use scrap wood to make woodworking projects. Always think about using your scraps before throwing them away. If you like to paint, store your paint properly to prevent it from drying out. Always make sure that the cap is on, and like if it's one of those with like a little flip top, make sure that it's cleaned out so that it can actually seal all the way and doesn't get dried out. If you have paint on a palette, again, this was a tip from my mom being frugal, and we didn't use all the paint. She would store it in a Ziploc bag so that we could come back to it in a few days and the paint would still be pretty fresh. This one is pretty straightforward. Just don't use glitter. If you have to, try to find like a bioplastic glitter, but glitter is literally microplastics. And I think I'm haunted by it. I'll insert some photos. I glittered my Crocs in high school for homecoming and prom. I will admit it was iconic. And I also glittered a pumpkin. And let me tell you, I did this outside because I didn't want to make a mess inside. Ugh, I purposely polluted the planet. So I'm like kind of traumatized, and I tell everybody that they shouldn't use glitter, and I hate it. Which is fair. Glitter is terrible. Don't use it if you can prevent it. Another really fun craft idea is to recycle your own paper at home. I did this back during COVID when I was bored. You can check it out up here, how I recycle paper. I also wanted to do an experiment and test how many times I could recycle it without it like running out. So that's a really fun project. You can also make your own dyes at home, whether you're a fabric dyer or maybe even a painter or like a cake artist. You can make your own dyes out of food waste. I have made dyes out of like red cabbage and beets. I did like a blackish charcoal dye. You can use turmeric, you could use spinach. You can just simply Google how to make plant-based dyes, and that will be a much better resource than me. And in classic fashion, the last one in this category is to donate or sell all of your unused items instead of throwing them away. Moving on to woodworking. This is Dan's hobby, and these are just some ideas I thought of. The first one is to source your wood sustainably. This could be reclaimed wood, i.e. secondhand. You could forage for wood, like on a hike. If it's allowed, always check the rules before you forage. You could get scraps from lumber yards, or you could buy it from sustainably sourced forestry. You could also look for tools secondhand. Again, Facebook Marketplace, eBay. Even if you're just into like building, you know, building cars, building houses, whatever, look for your tools secondhand. Again, this will save you so much money, especially electronics. It's really good to keep those out of the landfill and keep those in our circular economy. A really cool tip I saw from Just in the Trees, that's his handle on TikTok. He uses his sawdust because he's a woodworker, to make incense cones. So free incense cones. And what a great upcycle and to reuse all of the scraps. And of course, just like with all the other art I just talked about, figure out how to use your scraps to make a scrap project. I've seen people make scraps into like a scrap cutting board. You could donate your old stuff when you're done with it. I'm not really sure if people would want like scrap wood donated. I might. It's fun to paint. But what you can also do is just burn your scrap wood instead of sending them to the landfill. Moving on to photography, I can't believe I forgot this hobby in the beginning, like in the intro. Of course, look for gear secondhand. This camera, this lens, this microphone. Pretty much all of our gear is secondhand. Again, will save you so much money. And like I've mentioned to a million times, keeping tech out of the landfill specifically is very, very important. It can be very toxic if we send it to the landfill. So supporting the secondhand industry for tech is very, very important. And again, sell your old camera gear that you aren't going to use if it's in good condition. If it's not in good condition, you can recycle it. I do have a video, again, very old, 2020 I think, up here about how to recycle tech and make money doing so. Love that video. But so yeah, that can go for your photography, for your video games, for whatever sort of electronic hobby that you're into. Use your lens cap. I'm not very good at it, like while I'm actually out and about, but I need to be because like I'm hiking. I'm hitting my camera on bushes, on trees, on logs, on rocks. So it's very, very important to protect your lens. Always keep your lens cap on or always know where it is so that you don't lose it, because we have lost one once and that was very sad. But especially like when you're in transit, when your camera is in your bag or in your car, keep the lens cap on to protect the lens. You can also get a lens like little protector. I don't think this one has it, but Dan's camera has it. It's just a little clear lens cap essentially that goes on the lens so that if it does get scratched, you can replace just that little piece of plastic instead of the entire lens going to waste. Oh hey, that was the next tip. Nice. Use your neck strap and your wrist strap. Dan is not very good at this and it scares me because I'm like, first off, if you drop that down into the Grand Canyon, our pictures are gone. But also, even if you just drop it, he's tall too. His camera's 5 feet off the ground. He drops it on the ground, it's probably toast. Even if you are on like the average or shorter side, it could still get damaged by dropping your camera, so always have a good grip on it, like with a wrist strap or a neck strap. Also, store your cameras in dry areas to prevent water damage. This was, not so important for us now that we lived in Vegas and now in Eastern Washington, but in Okinawa, like we had a dehumidifier. We used like silica packs to keep our camera equipment protected from the humidity. And just like all the other expensive hobbies too, maintain your cameras so that way they last as long as possible. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and hopefully this proves to you that you can in fact do your favorite hobbies while still being zero waste. It might not be perfectly zero waste, but it can be significantly less wasteful just by shopping secondhand, but also by following some of these other tips. So hopefully this inspires you to make your hobbies more sustainable, whether your hobby is cooking or fixing up cars or boating or whatever it may be. If you did think of some ideas, again, please leave them down below so that I can make a part 2 to this, because there are so many hobbies out there and I want everybody to feel included, feel like their hobby can be made zero waste. But again, if it can't, I'm sure it can in some way just by shopping secondhand and donating your old stuff. But if not, your little bit of waste is not causing climate change. Unless Jeff Bezos or Taylor Swift are watching this video, you as an average Joe are not causing climate change. Don't give up every single bit of joy in your life. Don't give up necessities in your life just because it creates a little bit of waste. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time. If you found any value in this, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to share this with others. If you're in like a crochet group, if you're in like a photography group, to share it with them and inspire them to be more low waste while still partaking in your favorite hobby. Thanks again for watching. I will see you in next week's video. What are we talking about next week, you might ask? Maybe you're not asking. Next week we're talking about composting. Yes, a video I've been wanting to make for a long time. All the different methods of composting, from composting in a home where you have a big yard to you're in a dorm or a very small apartment, and everything in between, to prove that everybody can compost. So this week we are proving that everybody can have hobbies and make them more eco-friendly, and next week we're talking about that everybody can in fact compost in some way, with some caveats. We'll talk about that next week. I'll see you then. Until then though, remember that your small actions make a big difference in the long run. Bye guys. 5 out of 5. Let's go. Kinda tempted to do a 6th one, but I'm also very tired. My neighbor's totally watching me film right now.